Good day, everyone. Today, I wish to say a little about why I believe in the power of stories and storytelling. Stories are the bedrock of how we understand the world, connect with each other, and create meaning. They possess an immense and powerful duality, the capacity to foster profound positive change and the ability to inflict devastating harm. By weaving events into a narrative, stories can shape our perceptions, evoke deep emotions, and ultimately drive our actions. This influence extends from our social world into the very heart of scientific discovery. Let me talk a little about how stories can be a catalyst for positive change and scientific inspiration. When used to illuminate injustice, build empathy, or imagine new possibilities, stories can become powerful engines for social progress and scientific innovation. Here are some examples. Fostering the abolitionist movement, Harriet Beecher Stowe's 1852 novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin, was a landmark piece of storytelling that had a profound impact on the anti slavery movement. By creating compelling human characters who suffered the brutalities of slavery and the characters who helped slaves escape its yoke, the book forced a largely indifferent audience to confront the institution's inhumanity, galvanizing abolitionist sentiment and shaping the course of American history. Here's another: Shaping Holocaust Education, Schindler's List. Steven Spielberg's 1993 film Schindler's List transformed public understanding of the Holocaust. By telling the true story of Oskar Schindler, the film puts a human face on a history often reduced to incomprehensible statistics and movies. It made the events emotionally resonant with a global audience, leading to a surge in demand for Holocaust education and inspiring many survivors to share their own testimonies, preserving a terrible but crucial part of human history. And finally, driving emotional action, the story of Flint Water's crisis. The story of the water crisis in Flint, Michigan became a powerful narrative of government failure and citizen activism. The stories told by Flint residents, particularly mothers like Leanne Walters, scientists like Dr. Hona Atissa, created an undeniable narrative of a community being poisoned. This continuous storytelling but put immense pressure on governments, leading to official investigations, aid, and a nationwide conversation about infrastructure and environmental justice. So, how does speculative fiction inspire real science? Beyond social change, it is the realm of speculative fiction, particularly science fiction, that stories act as a direct catalyst for real world science and technology. This genre is not just entertainment, it's a vast thought experiment. Let's consider science fiction as a blueprint for technology. Stories often provide the conceptual groundwork that engineers and scientists later build upon. How about the mobile phone? Martin Cooper, the inventor of the first handheld cellular phone, has frequently cited a communicator from the 1960s TV series Star Trek as his inspiration. The show presented the idea of an untethered personal communication device long before the technology was feasible, giving engineers a tangible goal to work towards, a vision, if you like. Now let's think about submarines and space travel. Jules Verne's 19th century novels, such as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and From the Earth to the Moon, were meticulously researched speculative tales. They inspired generations of scientists and engineers, including submarine pioneer Simon Lake and rocket scientist Robert Goddard, who saw in Verne's fiction a plausible vision for the future of exploration. Then there is virtual reality and the metaverse. Neil Stephenson's 1992 novel Snow Crash introduced the concept of the metaverse, a persistent virtual world populated by avatars. This story provided a vocabulary and conceptual framework that has directly influenced the development of modern VR, and AR technologies by companies like Meta and inspired innovators like the creator of Oculus Rift, Palmer Luckey. Now let's go to speculative, megalithic, and monolithic fiction and scientific inquiry. Even stories about our deep past can inspire new scientific questions. Speculative fiction set around megalithic structures like Stonehenge or Gobekli Tepe can put us to consider and reconsider the capabilities of ancient peoples. While often fantastical, these narratives can encourage archaeologists and anthropologists to ask, what if? They challenge established assumptions about prehistoric engineering, social organization, or astronomical knowledge. For example, a story imagining how a Neolithic society might have tracked a solar eclipse could prompt a real world archaeologist to re examine stone alignments and carvings of previously unnoticed astronomical functions. Thus, open up new avenues of legitimate scientific inquiry. By imagining the how, these stories inspire scientists to find the evidence. How about the negative power of stories, spreading hate and division? Just as stories can build bridges, they can also build walls. When used to dehumanize or spread fear, they are among the most dangerous tools in existence. Fueling and fueling racism and reviving the KKK, the birth of a nation. D.W. Griffith's 1915 film is a stark example of storytelling's destructive power. It presented a heroic narrative of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, portraying them as saviors protecting white society from dangerous African Americans. This racist distortion of history was directly responsible for a massive resurgence of the KKK and validated harmful stereotypes that triggered decades of racial violence and discrimination, which led eventually to the Civil Rights Act. Inciting genocide in Rwanda, radio propaganda. In the 1994 Rwandan genocide, radio station RTLM broadcasted a relentless story of hate, dehumanizing the Tutsi population by calling them cockroaches. This narrative created an atmosphere of fear so intense that it turned neighbors against neighbors, leading to the slaughter of approximately 800,000 people. How about perpetuating harmful stereotypes in the media? On a pervasive level, everyday stories in the media can reinforce negative stereotypes. The repeated narratives of the thug, the submissive woman, or the terrorist shape public perception and can influence everything from hiring decisions to biased policing. They create a story in the public consciousness about who certain people are, which is often dangerously inaccurate and deeply prejudicial. These are just some brief but impactful examples of the power a story can have on us personally and society as a whole. Stories can foster peace as well as war, love as well as hate. In my story, I aim to foster inspiration for the reader to be encouraged and drive to realize their own potential, to believe in loyalty and community spirit, that together we are stronger and we are all in need of the same things, the same air we breathe, the same water we drink, the same food, the need for a roof over our head, that we are all seeking fulfillment and contentment. Join me on my next post as we continue to talk about stories and my story in particular and my characters in particular. But for now, thanks for spending a few minutes with me today, and I'll see you on my next post.